You gonna help me on drums? You gonna be my drummer for today? Yeah. Good boy. So, I guess Dusty will hang out with me for this. So, starting out with drums, I knew from the very beginning that I didn't want to start out with a full drum kit going. I kind of wanted to progressively build into a full drum kit. So the first idea I had was to have my really big 15 by 30 inch Slingerland kick drum coming in from behind everyone in the first verse to kind of wake everyone up. As you'll see, when that comes in, that's kind of when we get a beat going. We're kind of building into this song as we go. There'll be some shakers and stuff. So this is a really quick part. I only hit it a few times leading into the first chorus. So this is obviously a huge, massive drum. It can be kind of niche and do things like this really well. If I put a different front head on it and tune it up higher, it's a very versatile kick. I use this on normal stuff all the time. If you tune this well, it's just got a really cool attack kind of sound to it. But in this case, I've tuned it super loose, as low as I could get it. I've taken all of the muffling stuff that I usually trade out inside of it. I've taken all of that out. I put a Remo Renaissance head on it, and it's just super resonant. When it hits, you're going to hear it boom. It's going to kind of rumble. So we've got a Soyuz 1973 on the front in case I need more attack. And then I've got the 017 FET right up front to give us more of that boomy resonance. I'm hoping I can do most of the sound with the 017 FET and just have it really boomy and resonant. I'll probably end up blending this in just a little bit, again, in case it gets lost a little bit and we need a little bit more attack. Probably gonna run into some weird phase issues with the mics facing each other, because the other thing we have to contend with is right behind the camera, I've set up my booth to kind of isolate stuff with the GIK gobo blocks, and I have the ambisonic mic back there. And I basically separated them as far as I could in this room, because I almost want it to be a bit of a delay. You hear the drum hit directly in front of you, and then it kind of travels around you and hits the front of the room. So we'll see if that works. I might end up playing around with some delays and delaying the ambisonic mic just a little bit in post. Just, maybe, 50 samples or something. Nothing crazy, but I kind of have this idea in my head where I want it to travel. You hear it hit behind you, and then you hear it travel through the room. So we'll see how that works out. But again, we're probably going to end up with some weird phase issues trying to make all of this work together. And phase is another thing I could probably do a whole video series about when dealing with phase and Atmos, because sometimes when you get everything checked in mono, it doesn't work the same way when you start spreading it around. So phase is one of those things that you always have to think about, and you have to think about it differently when you start panning stuff around the room and dealing with it in different ways in Atmos. And sometimes things that work well phase-wise with the speakers don't necessarily translate to headphones. It's not something I want to talk about authoritatively yet, because I'm still struggling with it, and it's just a case-by-case basis. But all that to say, probably going to have some funky phase issues, and we'll probably work through that at mix time. So I'll shut up. Let's hear this. It's a really quick part. Now that we're ready to record the main drum part of the song, the biggest decision I had to make was figuring out how to split things up on the drum set, because when I started looking at some ideas that I had to mic the drum set up and make it more immersive, and then I was looking at how many channels I had to play with, because again, I'm using all Soyuz mics, so I don't have that many. I knew that it would probably be a good idea to at least split it up so that I played the main kind of drum loop separately and then overdub the toms. The main drum part's pretty repetitive, so I want that to stick to the main wall and just do a few small things to pull it forward and make it more immersive. There's going to be a handful of tom fills in the song, not that many, so I kind of made the decision just to split the toms up and overdub them. I just had to think about where those were and kind of do air toms when we did the fills when I was playing the main part. So hopefully by overdubbing the toms, they'll be a little bit more exaggerated and kind of, wake you up and do something cool. I haven't gotten to that part, but we'll see. I also decided not to do any crash cymbals yet. I'm going to overdub those as well and experiment with kind of spreading those up and around and maybe in the heights. We'll see. So first thing we'll record is the main drum part. I'll overdub toms and I'll overdub the cymbals. For this, since it's a pretty repetitive part, I just kind of played the loop for the kick, the snare, and the hats. Main mic is going to be the 017 FET and a low overhead. I'm hoping that that's going to be the bulk of the drum sound, and I'll kind of pull in the close mics just to support that. I'm hoping that I can take that 017 FET, bring it off the front wall just a little bit, and raise it up in the heights, almost like it is physically in the room. So just bring that up a little bit. We'll see if that pans out, but that's the plan at this point. The other cool thing that I did with this part was I spread out two bomblets kind of in a side mic position. I've never done this for stereo, but when I thought about how I was going to place the mics in the immersive environment, I knew I probably wanted to have a stereo set of mics that were just going to the side speakers. So when I'm sitting in the room looking at my side speakers, that's kind of what I thought about if I was a drummer looking at myself in the control room. I thought about where those side speakers would translate to this room. I kind of triangulated a bit between the 017 FET and the two bomblets so that they're all equidistant from a central point on the kick. So those two bomblets are kind of on the side. They're facing down. I'm going to blend those into the side speakers just to kind of bring stuff forward and add a little bit of width. They're going to help with the hi-hats as well because I decided not to mic those. I'm hoping the hi-hats are going to be pulled back in the mix a little bit. I'm going to support them with some kind of alternate percussion, so we'll see how that goes. Rest of the stuff is pretty straightforward. I've got two mics on the kick drum, two mics on the snare. I'm doubling up on those with the 1973s and the new 011s. Kick sounds pretty good to me. Typically, I wouldn't use a small cap inside the kick drum, but it's what I had available and ended up sounding really good, so I was really surprised by that. I might use that more often now that I've tried it. Snare drum, the under mic is the 011, and I've kind of driven that through the Soyuz preamp a little bit to distort it. That might sound weird, but in context, I think it's going to make a little more sense. That top mic with the 1973, it sounds horrible on its own, just soloed. But when you add it in with the 017 FET as the main mic, if you just blend in a little bit of that 1973, really gives some power to the snare. So again, this wasn't a typical thing where I'm planning on using a lot of that top mic. It's supporting the 017 FET, and hopefully it's going to be doing the heavy lifting. So close mics are pretty typical. I'll play a soloed version of those real quick probably, but I think the main thing I want to focus in when we do the back and forths on the audio is the 017 FET and the bomblets, because those are a little bit unique in terms of how I'm placing the 017 FET in the image off the front wall and in the heights a little bit, and then those two bomblets on the side. So let's take a listen to those. Although the toms are a really small part of the song, I think there's only 3 fills. I wanted them to feel a little different, a little special, and just kind of disconnected from the rest of the drum kit somehow. One thing that came to mind immediately was a Spoon song called Don't Make Me a Target. If you listen to that, the drums are pretty much up front and mono. The kit is for the most part. A little bit of room tone on the drums, and then when the toms come in, they come in really strong from the sides, and there's like this big kind of compressed room tone. I think that's what I want to happen with these, so we'll see what happens. I might end up mixing them different, but that's the idea at this point at least. Fairly simple setup. I've got 2 of the 011 FETs just sitting over the 2 toms. You can see the ambisonic mic sitting just out of focus on the edge of the frame. It's probably 5 feet back. And then right above me, I can show you a clip. There's the Soyuz 017 FET, probably 6 or 7 feet above. So the idea with these is the drums, for the most part, the kit at least, is very upfront on the front wall. I'm bringing in some side mics just a little bit to pull them off, but the kit's going to be on the front wall. I want these toms. I don't want any of the toms going to the front wall. These 2 close mics, I think I'm going to pan really hard just to the side speakers so that they're, they'll kind of come from the sides from the direct tone. The ambisonic mic, I'm actually going to mute the center and front left and right render of that. So the only thing that's happening with the ambisonic mic is it's just putting stuff out from the heights, the sides, and the rears. So again, don't want anything coming from the front. Same with the high overhead mic, the 017. I think I'm going to end up panning that in the back 2 height speakers. So again, I want there to be a little bit of a disconnect where when the kit's playing, it's very much up front, and then when those handful of tom fills come in, it's almost like everything shifts and you hear the room tone coming from the back. So kit's more front wall, toms are going to shift back to the sides and back, and then it'll go back to the kit. So let's take a listen. I'm overdubbing the crash cymbals as well. There's no ride in this, just a couple of spots where there's crashes. I'm going to keep this really simple. I'm miking the crash cymbal with 2 different mics, and the idea is to get 2 slightly different tones. I'm going to hit slightly different on the cymbal 2 ways. I'll hit more directly on top and then more on the side to mellow them out. On one of them that's panned to the left side of the mix, I'm going to use the 011 FET paired with the ambisonic mic. You'll notice that the ambisonic mic is a lot lower and it's off to the side. That's because the cymbal is going to be panned in the mix as well. So I kind of set the ambisonic mic up so it would sound like the cymbal was coming from slightly above it and over to the side. We'll blend in the direct tone from one of those mics as well to help place that in the image. So one of the hits, it's going to have it coming from the left side of the mix with the 011 FET and the ambisonic mic, and then I'm going to hit the cymbal slightly different. That one's going to be like the right side cymbal. It's going to be panned to the right, and I'll be using the bomblet to get a slightly different tone. So on the left cymbal with the 011, the ambisonic mic is going to be panned over to the left and up a little bit. On the right side cymbal with the bomblet and the ambisonic mic, I'm just going to flip the image so the ambisonic mic is panned over to the side.